This is so interesting. I mean, so the problem of systemic evil to atheism kind of gets, I guess, put down kind of in a really interesting ways. You explore four versions of modest optimism. We've already spoken about optimism before previously, but you kind of talk about modest optimism, and you conclude with modest optimism number four, and quote, this is what it says: overall and fundamentally, our environment is not bad. So I think it'd be helpful at this point to understand how modest optimism almost reinforces the problem of systemic evil for atheists.
Sure. So the problem of systemic evil seems to suggest that the world, or at least the environment in which we live, is not overall and fundamentally good. It looks pretty bad. And now I want to create a conflict of this idea with a certain form of optimism. So I want to show that the existence of systemic evil is a big problem for many, many optimists. And to expand the scope of my argument, I present the most modest form of optimism, which I call modest optimism. And this view says that, as you quoted, the overall and fundamentally the environment in which we live is not bad. It doesn't even say it's good, but it's not bad. So the idea is that, okay, there are horrible things like wars and natural disasters and all kinds of things, but ultimately the world is not fundamentally bad, and it's overall not bad. That's modest optimism. And then I combine modest optimism and the problem of systemic evil to create the problem of evil for both theists and non-theists. And obviously, theists are modest optimists. They are more than modest optimists. So they think that God created the world, so the world should be overall good and fundamentally good. That's what theists would say. But many atheists, I would argue, would also claim that modest optimism is correct. I think there are very few atheists who are explicitly pessimist.
Yeah, you kind of chat a little bit about Schopenhauer and Benatar and a sort of few others as well that would kind of label themselves as pessimists. I mean, maybe we can get into that shortly. I think
Yeah.
what I want to really kind of hammer home is that the problem of evil for atheists is rooted in axiological expectation mismatch between modest optimism and systemic evil. That's kind of what we're getting to. And I think, I mean, I've got a whole host of kind of questions that I want to kind of not challenge this view with, but kind of push into this view a little bit more. I'm sure that most people have these sort of pushbacks, so it wouldn't be anything new. But to start off with, I thought it'd be interesting to ask kind of what has the philosophical community's response been like to this argument?
Yeah, that's a good question because often when I present my argument, people often say, "Oh, but atheists they don't have to embrace optimism," and then I say, "Yeah, that's perfectly fine. That's consistent with my claim." Because I believe that there are very few pessimists like Schopenhauer and Benatar. I think their view is consistent. So the problem of systemic evil suggests that the world appears to be, overall and fundamentally not good. And that's perfectly consistent with pessimism. So if atheists say, we want to accept pessimism, then that kind of view is perfectly consistent. But my claim is that as far as I know, many or most atheists are modest optimists. There are very few theists that I have encountered who explicitly claim that the world is overall fundamentally horrible. So the most common response to my argument is to say that pessimism is available for atheists, but that is consistent with my claim. And if all theists in the world they accept pessimism, then I would acknowledge that there is no problem of evil for them.
Yeah, it's just a very, very hard pill to swallow. I mean, many people have tried to live as pessimists, and they struggle just due to their day-to-day actions of or they're voting or whatever it is, they're grocery shopping. There's different things that they're performing which suggest that although philosophically pessimism might be true, experientially and through the life they live, the signals and signs that they're outwardly showing seem to suggest that the kind of optimism to some degree seems to actually be the physical reality rather than just the mental philosophical reality,
Right.
which is fascinating.
Yeah, so I cite many psychological studies in my book, and there's a lot of research, psychological research, suggesting that people are consistently optimistic about almost everything, about natural disasters, the possibility of becoming victims of crimes, and all sorts of diseases, and everything. People tend to have a very strong optimistic bias, and obviously their optimism is not based on philosophical arguments. So maybe when people embrace optimism, they're not being very rational and logical. But I think the empirical fact is that most people, whether they're theists or atheists, they are optimists, and then I claim that they face this existential concern that the problem of systemic evil is raising.
If you enjoyed this clip, head on over to Locals to watch the full conversation right now. Supporters can access the video version, and everyone can freely listen to the audio-only version of the conversation. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, please like, subscribe, and then hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a new episode. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.